Evelyn Voss lived in a world where money could buy anything. Anything except happiness. Her home was a sky palace, floating high above the clouds in a futuristic city called Nova Lux. It was a place of glittering lights, endless technology, and people who never seemed to sleep. From her panoramic windows, Evelyn could see the entire city below. Tall buildings that reached for the stars, flying cars zipping through the air, and neon signs glowing brighter than the sun. But none of it made her smile. Every morning, Evelyn woke up in her luxurious bedroom. The walls were covered in gold accents, and her bed was so soft it felt like sleeping on air. Robots attended to her every need. One brought her coffee exactly how she liked it, black with a hint of cinnamon. Another laid out her clothes for the day, always something expensive and stylish. Yet, no matter how perfect everything seemed, Evelyn felt empty inside. She tried to fill the void with distractions. She threw parties at her palace, inviting only the richest and most famous people in the galaxy. They danced under holographic skies, drank rare wines imported from distant planets, and laughed louder than anyone should. But when the music stopped and the guests left, Evelyn was alone again, and the silence hurt more than anything else. At night, Evelyn would sit by her window and stare at the stars. She didn't know why, but they calmed her. They reminded her of something bigger than herself, something beyond the shiny skyscrapers and crowded streets of Nova Lux. Sometimes she wondered if there was a life waiting for her out there among the stars, a life where she wouldn't feel so lost. One evening, Evelyn attended a gala hosted on a floating platform miles above Earth's atmosphere. The event was extravagant, even by her standards. Guests wore outfits made of shimmering fabrics that changed colors with every step. Waiters carried trays of delicacies engineered to taste like foods from other planets. A band played music created entirely by artificial intelligence, blending melodies no human composer could imagine. Evelyn wandered through the crowd, nodding politely as strangers complimented her beauty or envied her wealth. None of them knew her. Not really. To them, she was just another face in the elite circle of Nova Lux's upper class. She moved toward the edge of the platform, away from the noise, and looked down at the curve of the planet below. For a moment, she thought about jumping, not because she wanted to die, but because she wanted to escape. "Beautiful view, isn't it?" a voice said behind her. Evelyn turned to see an older man with silver hair and sharp eyes. He wore a simple black suit, standing out among the flashy attire of the other guests. "It is," Evelyn replied, unsure what else to say. "You're Evelyn Voss, aren't you?" he asked, the heiress to the Voss Industries fortune. She nodded, already bored. She had heard this introduction countless times before. "I'm Dr. Cal Arden," the man continued. "I've been working on something unique. Perhaps you've heard rumors about Project Elysium." Evelyn froze. She had heard whispers about it, a secret project rumored to unlock people's deepest desires. Some said it was a machine that granted wishes. Others claimed it opened doors to alternate realities. No one knew for sure, but everyone wanted to find out. "What do you know about it?" Evelyn asked, her curiosity piqued. Dr. Arden smiled faintly. "It's not something I can explain here, but let's just say it has the potential to change lives, in ways some might consider miraculous." Before Evelyn could ask more, the doctor excused himself, disappearing into the crowd. His words lingered in her mind long after the party ended. That night, as she lay in her massive bed surrounded by plush pillows, she couldn't stop thinking about Project Elysium. Could it give her what she truly wanted? Could it fill the emptiness inside her? The next day, Evelyn decided to act. She used her vast resources to dig deeper into the mystery. What she discovered shocked her. Dr. Arden wasn't just a scientist, he was a genius who had vanished from public life years ago. Rumors suggested he had built a portal capable of showing people their heart's greatest desire. But the location of his lab was unknown, hidden somewhere far from Nova Lux. Determined to find answers, Evelyn hired a pilot named Rin Calder. Rin was different from the polished elites Evelyn usually associated with. He was rugged, with messy hair and a sarcastic grin. His spaceship, the Stellar Nomad, was old and patched up, nothing like the sleek vessels owned by Evelyn's peers. But Rin had a reputation for getting things done, no matter the risk. When Evelyn met him, he raised an eyebrow at her designer clothes and elegant posture. "You sure you're ready for this?" he asked. "Space isn't like your fancy parties." "I'll manage," Evelyn replied, though she wasn't entirely sure she believed it herself. As they prepared to leave Nova Lux, Evelyn felt a mix of fear and excitement. For the first time in years, she had a goal, one that didn't involve buying another luxury item or attending another meaningless event. Somewhere out there, beyond the glimmering city and the endless expanse of space, lay the answers she had been searching for. And maybe, just maybe, those answers would finally make her whole. The journey began with a jolt as the stellar nomad blasted off from Nova Lux's gleaming spaceport. Evelyn gripped the armrest of her seat tightly, feeling the rumble of the engines vibrate through her body. She had never been on a spaceship before, let alone one that looked like it might fall apart at any moment. The interior was cluttered with wires hanging loose, dented panels, and mismatched chairs bolted to the floor. Compared to her pristine sky palace, this felt like stepping into chaos. Rain sat in the pilot's chair, his hands moving deftly over the controls. "Relax," he said without looking back. "This old girl may not look pretty, but she's got heart." Evelyn didn't feel reassured. Her stomach churned as they left the atmosphere behind and entered the vast emptiness of space. Stars stretched out endlessly, tiny pinpricks of light against an infinite black canvas. It was beautiful, but also terrifying. For the first time, Evelyn realized how small she truly was. Their first stop was a bustling space station called Iron Haven. It was nothing like the polished parties Evelyn was used to. The station was crowded with traders, mercenaries, and scavengers, all shouting over each other in a language Evelyn barely understood. Neon signs flickered above grimy bars, and the air smelled of oil and burnt metal. "This is where we'll stock up on supplies," Rin explained, leading Evelyn through the throng of people. He handed her a plain gray jacket. "Put this on. You stick out too much." Evelyn hesitated but obeyed. As she pulled the hood over her head, she noticed the stares from others. They weren't admiring glances like the ones she received at galas. These were sharp, calculating looks. For the first time, she felt vulnerable and strangely alive. While Rin bartered for fuel and food, Evelyn wandered into a dimly lit corner of the station. There, she found a group of children huddled together, their clothes torn and faces smudged with dirt. One of them held a broken toy robot, trying to fix it with trembling hands. Evelyn reached into her pocket and pulled out a credit chip, the kind worth more than most people earned in a lifetime. "Here," she said softly, holding it out to the kids. They stared at her, wide-eyed, then scrambled away as if afraid she hurt them. Evelyn stood frozen, confused by their reaction. Back in Novalux, handing out money was second nature to her. But here, kindness seemed foreign, or maybe suspicious. Ryan found her moments later. "You can't solve everything with cash," he said, his tone gentler than usual. "These people don't trust easy handouts. They've learned the hard way." Evelyn nodded, though she didn't fully understand. Something about this place made her realize how sheltered her life had been. Money could buy comfort, but it couldn't shield her from the raw truths of the universe. The next leg of their journey took them deeper into dangerous territory. Rin warned Evelyn about pirate zones, regions of space controlled by ruthless gangs who preyed on travelers. "Stay alert," he told her. "If we run into trouble, do exactly what I say." It wasn't long before trouble found them. A red warning light flashed on the ship's console as a sleek fighter craft appeared on their radar. "Pirates," Rin muttered, gripping the controls. "Hold on tight." The pirates opened fire, sending blasts of energy streaking past the stellar nomad. Evelyn screamed as the ship rocked violently, nearly throwing her from her seat. Sparks flew from the control panel, and smoke filled the cockpit. "We're hit," Rin shouted. "I need your help." "What can I do?" Evelyn yelled, panic rising in her chest. "There's a lever under your seat. Pull it. It activates the emergency shields." Evelyn fumbled around until her fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. With all her strength, she yanked the lever upward. A faint hum filled the cabin as a shimmering barrier surrounded the ship, deflecting the pirate attacks. "Good job," Rin said, his voice tense. "Now strap in. We're getting out of here." He maneuvered the ship into a daring escape, weaving between asteroids and firing counterattacks. Evelyn watched in awe as Ryan worked the controls with precision, his calm demeanor belying the danger they were in. Finally, the pirate ship retreated, disappearing into the void. When the threat was gone, Evelyn slumped back in her seat, breathing heavily. Her hands were shaking, but she felt something unexpected: pride. She had faced real fear and survived. As they traveled further, Evelyn and Rin visited abandoned colonies ravaged by corporate greed. On one such planet, they walked through the ruins of a once thriving city. Crumbling buildings loomed overhead, their windows shattered and walls covered in vines. The streets were eerily silent, save for the occasional creak of rusted metal swaying in the wind. These people thought they had it all figured out, Rin said, kicking a piece of debris aside. Big companies promised them jobs, homes, futures. Then, when the resources ran out, they left everyone behind. Evelyn looked around, imagining what life must have been like for the colonists. She thought about her own wealth, built on industries that exploited planets like this one. Guilt twisted in her gut, but she pushed it down. Now it wasn't the time to dwell on the past. Despite the heaviness of their surroundings, Evelyn found herself opening up to Rin. They talked late into the night, sharing stories about their lives. Rin spoke of his days as a smuggler, running from authorities and surviving on quick wit. Evelyn admitted how lonely she felt, even surrounded by luxury. For the first time, she didn't feel judged for being rich or criticized for wanting more. "You're stronger than you think," Rin told her one evening as they sat beneath the stars. "You wouldn't have come this far otherwise." Evelyn smiled faintly. Maybe he was right, or maybe she just needed to believe it. By the time they reached the coordinates of Dr. Arden's hidden lab, Evelyn was no longer the same woman who had left Nova Lux. She had faced danger, seen poverty and despair, and formed a bond with someone who challenged her worldview. Yet, despite everything, the emptiness inside her remained. But now she had hope. Hope that Project Elysium would show her what she truly wanted, and give her the chance to become whole. The coordinates led Evelyn and Rain to a desolate region of space, far from the bustling trade routes and glittering cities. The only landmark was a dying star, its light flickering weakly like a candle about to burn out. Orbiting the star was a small, unassuming research station, Dr. Arden's hidden lab. As the stellar nomad approached, Evelyn felt her heart race. This was it, the place where she might finally find answers. She had spent her life chasing wealth and perfection, but none of it had filled the void inside her. Now, standing on the brink of discovery, she wondered if she was ready for what lay ahead. Inside the station, the air was cold and stale, carrying the faint smell of oil and metal. The walls were lined with blinking monitors and humming machines, their screens displaying streams of data too complex for Evelyn to understand. At the center of the room stood Dr. Cal Arden, his silver hair glinting under the dim lights. His sharp eyes studied Evelyn as she entered, assessing her with an intensity that made her feel exposed. "So you've come," he said, his voice calm but commanding. "I assume you've heard about Project Elysium." Evelyn nodded. "I want to know more." Dr. Arden gestured toward a massive structure at the far end of the lab. A swirling portal suspended in midair, pulsing with shifting colors like liquid rainbows. Its surface shimmered hypnotically, drawing Evelyn's gaze. She couldn't look away. "This is the gateway," Dr. Arden explained. "It shows people their deepest desires, but not in the way you might expect. It doesn't create fantasies. It reveals truths. And those truths can be difficult to face." "What do you mean?" Evelyn asked, her voice trembling. "The portal connects to alternate realities, versions of your life shaped by your choices and emotions. When you step inside, you'll see what could have been. But beware, many who enter become trapped, unable to leave the illusion of perfection they find within." Ryan stepped forward, frowning. "Sounds risky. Why would anyone go in?" "Because," Dr. Arden replied, turning his piercing gaze to Evelyn, "sometimes we're willing to risk everything to find what we truly want." Evelyn hesitated, her mind racing. She had come so far, faced so much danger, all to reach this moment. Could she turn back now? No. Whatever lay beyond the portal, she needed to see it, to understand why she felt so empty. "I'll do it," she said firmly, stepping toward the glowing entrance. Rain grabbed her arm. "Are you sure about this? You don't know what's waiting for you." "I have to try," Evelyn replied, meeting his concerned eyes. "If there's even a chance I can find peace, I need to take it." Reluctantly, Ren let go. Evelyn took a deep breath and stepped through the shimmering surface of the portal. On the other side, Evelyn found herself in a world unlike anything she'd ever known. The sky above was a brilliant shade of gold, and the air smelled sweet, like blooming flowers. She stood in a lush garden, surrounded by towering trees and vibrant flowers that seemed to glow within her light. In the distance, a cozy house sat nestled among the greenery, smoke curling gently from its chimney. A wave of warmth washed over Evelyn as she walked toward the house. Inside, she found a family gathered around a dining table, laughing and talking. A man, kind-faced and smiling, sat at the head of the table, holding hands with a woman who looked at him with love in her eyes. Two children giggled as they played with toys scattered across the floor. And then Evelyn saw herself, or rather, a version of herself. This Evelyn was different. Her eyes sparkled with joy, and her laughter echoed warmly through the room. She wasn't dressed in designer clothes or adorned with jewels. Instead, she wore simple attire, her hair tied back in a loose braid. She looked happy. For the first time in years, Evelyn felt a pang of longing so strong it brought tears to her eyes. This was the life she had always dreamed of, a life filled with love, connection, and purpose. She wanted to stay here forever, to belong to this perfect world. But as she reached out to touch the smiling faces around her, cracks began to appear in the scene. The golden sky darkened, the glowing flowers wilted, and the laughter faded into silence. The house crumbled into dust, leaving Evelyn alone in an empty void. "No," she cried, falling to her knees. "Why is this happening?" A voice echoed in the darkness, not angry or cruel, but gentle and firm. "This is not real," it said. "It is a reflection of your desires, but not the truth of who you are." Evelyn realized the truth. This perfect life wasn't hers. It couldn't be. It was an illusion, a dream built on wishes rather than reality. Staying here would mean losing herself, becoming trapped in a lie. With a heavy heart, Evelyn made her choice. She turned away from the crumbling vision and stepped back toward the portal. As she crossed the threshold, the void dissolved, and she found herself back in the lab, gasping for breath. Dr. Arden watched her silently, his expression unreadable. Rin rushed to her side, gripping her shoulders. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice thick with concern. Evelyn nodded, though tears streamed down her face. "I saw it," she whispered. "I saw what I wanted, but it wasn't real." "What did you see?" Rin pressed. "A family. Love. Belonging." Evelyn paused, taking a shaky breath. "But now I know. Those things aren't something I can buy or find in a machine. They're something I have to build for myself with others." Dr. Arden nodded approvingly. "You've taken the first step toward understanding yourself. Few have the courage to leave the illusion behind." Before Evelyn could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and the monitors displayed warnings of incoming ships. "They found us," Rin growled, pulling out a weapon. "Mercenaries. They must have followed us here." Evelyn's stomach sank. She had come so close to finding answers, only to face another threat. But this time she didn't feel afraid. She felt resolved. "Let's protect what matters," she said, standing tall. "Whatever happens next, we do it together." The alarms blared louder, piercing the silence of the lab. On the monitors, red dots swarmed closer, mercenary ships closing in fast. Evelyn's heart pounded as she realized the danger wasn't just to her or Rin. It was to everything they had worked so hard to uncover. "They're here for the portal," Dr. Arden said grimly, his voice cutting through the chaos. "If they get their hands on this technology, they'll use it to exploit people, to twist their desires into weapons." Evelyn clenched her fists. She had seen firsthand how dangerous the portal could be. If it fell into the wrong hands, countless lives would be destroyed. She couldn't let that happen, not after everything she'd been through. "What do we do?" she asked, looking between Rin and Dr. Arden. Rin was already moving, grabbing tools and weapons scattered around the lab. "We fight," he said simply. "But we don't have much time." Dr. Arden nodded. "There's one option left. If we destroy the portal, no one will ever misuse its power. But once it's gone, there's no going back." Evelyn hesitated. Destroying the portal meant giving up any chance of revisiting the perfect life she had glimpsed. It meant accepting that what she truly wanted couldn't come from a machine. It had to come from within. She took a deep breath and made her decision. "Do it," she said firmly. "We can't risk letting them take it." The mercenaries breached the station moments later, their heavy boots echoing through the corridors. Armed with energy rifles and armored suits, they moved with precision, clearly trained for combat. Evelyn, Rin, and Dr. Arden barricaded themselves behind a row of consoles, using whatever cover they could find. "This isn't exactly my area of expertise," Evelyn muttered, gripping a small laser pistol Rin had handed her. "You'll do fine," Rin replied, his tone calm but urgent. "Just aim and shoot, and stay close to me." The first wave of mercenaries charged into the lab, firing wildly. Sparks flew as blasts hit nearby equipment, sending shards of metal ricocheting across the room. Evelyn ducked instinctively, her pulse racing. This wasn't like the pirate attack earlier. This was war. Summoning every ounce of courage, Evelyn peeked over the console and fired her weapon. To her surprise, she hit one of the mercenaries square in the chest, knocking him off his feet. The rush of adrenaline gave her strength, pushing aside her fear. "Nice shot," Rin called out, grinning despite the chaos. He leaned out from behind the console and fired a series of precise shots, taking down two more attackers. Dr. Arden worked furiously at a control panel, typing commands to initiate the self-destruct sequence for the portal. "Almost there," he shouted over the noise. "Just hold them off a little longer." Evelyn and Rin fought side by side, their movements becoming synchronized as they covered each other's backs. Evelyn realized something she hadn't expected. She trusted Rin completely. For the first time in her life, she felt like part of a team, working towards something greater than herself. But the mercenaries kept coming, relentless and ruthless. One of them managed to flank their position, sneaking up behind Evelyn. Before she could react, Ryan tackled the attacker to the ground, wrestling the weapon from his grasp. The move left Rin vulnerable, and a blast grazed his shoulder, tearing through his jacket. "Rin!" Evelyn screamed, rushing to his side. "I'm fine," he growled, wincing as he pressed a hand to the wound. "Keep fighting." Tears blurred Evelyn's vision, but she forced herself to focus. She couldn't afford to fall apart. Not now. With renewed determination, she stood tall and fired repeatedly, driving the remaining mercenaries back. Finally, Dr. Arden's voice rang out. "It's done. The portal's destabilizing." A loud hum filled the air as the portal began to crackle and spark, its shimmering surface distorting like rippling water. The mercenaries hesitated, unsure what to do as the massive structure started collapsing in on itself. "We need to go now," Dr. Arden yelled, grabbing a bag of essential supplies. Evelyn helped Ren to his feet, supporting him as they ran toward the exit. Behind them, the portal erupted in a blinding flash of light, sending shockwaves through the station. The walls groaned and buckled, debris raining down as the entire structure began to fall apart. They barely made it to the stellar Nomad in time. As the ship launched into space, Evelyn looked back through the viewport to see the research station disintegrate into a cloud of dust and flames. The portal, and all its secrets, was gone forever. Once they were safely away, Evelyn slumped into a chair, exhausted but alive. Her body ached, and her mind raced with everything that had happened. She glanced at Rin, who was tending to his injured shoulder, and then at Dr. Arden, who sat quietly in the corner, staring out at the stars. "You did the right thing," Rin said softly, breaking the silence. "Destroying the portal wasn't easy, but it was the only way." Evelyn nodded, though tears welled up in her eyes. "I know, but it still hurts. I thought maybe I could have both, the life I want and the truth about myself. Now I realize I can't." "No one can," Dr. Arden interjected. "True fulfillment doesn't come from shortcuts or illusions. It comes from the choices you make, the connections you build, and the person you become." Evelyn wiped her tears and took a deep breath. She had faced her fears, made sacrifices, and discovered parts of herself she never knew existed. Though the journey had been painful, it had also been transformative. Looking out at the endless expanse of stars, Evelyn felt a strange sense of peace. The emptiness inside her hadn't disappeared entirely, but it no longer felt unbearable. For the first time, she understood that happiness wasn't something she could chase or buy. It was something she had to create, step by step, moment by moment. And she was ready to start building it. Months passed since the destruction of Project Elysium. Evelyn returned to Nova Lux, but she was no longer the same woman who had left. The glittering city still buzzed with energy, its skyscrapers reaching for the heavens and its streets alive with the hum of flying cars. But to Evelyn, it felt different, smaller, quieter somehow. She sold most of her extravagant possessions, the Sky Palace, the designer clothes, the priceless art collection. At first, people whispered behind her back, calling her reckless or foolish. "What's the point of being rich if you give it all away?" they asked. But Evelyn didn't care. For the first time in her life, she felt free, not weighed down by wealth or expectations, but lightened by purpose. With the money from selling her assets, Evelyn funded projects that mattered. She built schools in forgotten colonies where children could learn without fear of hunger or violence. She opened hospitals equipped with advanced technology, offering free medical care to those who couldn't afford it. And she created shelters for families displaced by corporate greed, giving them a chance to rebuild their lives. The work wasn't easy. There were setbacks, failures, and moments when Evelyn doubted herself. But every time she saw a child smile or heard someone express gratitude, she remembered why she was doing this. It wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about making a difference, however small. Ryan stayed by her side throughout it all. Their bond had grown stronger during their journey, forged in the fires of danger and shared vulnerability. They weren't just partners anymore. They were friends, confidants, and eventually something more. One evening, as they stood together on the balcony of Evelyn's new home, a modest apartment overlooking the city, Rain turned to her with a grin. You know, he said, I never thought I'd say this, but I kinda like the new you. Evelyn laughed, leaning into him. Even though I'm not dripping in diamonds anymore, especially because of that, Rin replied. You're happier now. You glow brighter than any jewel. Evelyn blushed, feeling warmth spread through her chest. She had spent years chasing perfection, thinking it would bring her happiness. But here she was, standing beside someone who accepted her flaws and celebrated her strengths, and she had never felt more complete. Together, Evelyn and Rin began exploring the galaxy again. This time, though, their adventures weren't driven by desperation or curiosity. They were fueled by joy. They visited distant planets, met fascinating cultures, and marveled at wonders beyond imagination. Each experience deepened their connection and reminded them how vast and beautiful the universe truly was. One night, while camping under twin moons on a remote planet, Evelyn lay on a blanket beside Rin, staring up at the stars. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of wildflowers and distant oceans. Fireflies danced around them, casting soft golden light over the scene. You think we'll ever find another portal like that one? Rin asked, his voice teasing but tinged with seriousness. Evelyn shook her head. No, and I don't want to. What I found inside myself, that's enough for me. Ryan smiled, reaching out to take her hand. Good answer. They sat in silence for a while, simply enjoying each other's company. Evelyn thought about everything she had lost and everything she had gained. She missed the illusion of perfection she had seen in the portal, but only because it had shown her what she truly wanted: love, meaning, and a sense of belonging. Now she had all those things, not in an alternate reality, but right here, in the messy, imperfect present. Back on Earth weeks later, Evelyn stood on her balcony once more, gazing at the stars. The city below sparkled as usual, but her attention was drawn upward, toward the endless expanse of space. She smiled softly, feeling a quiet contentment settle over her. For so long she had believed that money could buy happiness. Now she knew better. True happiness came from within, from courage, connection, and the willingness to embrace imperfection. Evelyn Voss no longer needed to chase dreams or illusions. She had found what truly mattered. And as she looked out at the stars, she realized something else. The journey wasn't over. Life was full of challenges, surprises, and opportunities to grow. But for the first time, Evelyn felt ready to face whatever came next. Not alone, but with Rin by her side. The stars twinkled brightly, as if winking at her. Evelyn smiled again, knowing she was exactly where she was meant to be. This final part brings closure to Evelyn's emotional arc while leaving room for future growth and exploration. It emphasizes the themes of authenticity, connection, and finding joy in simplicity, all expressed in straightforward language to keep the story accessible and relatable.